The Tennessee Volunteers are still waiting to figure out what's going to happen with Joey Aguilar. Not only does that impact the Vols, but the entire Southeastern Conference.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Crossover Locked On Vols and Locked On the Portal. I am your host, Brian Smith, along with Eric Cain and Locked On Vols. Thank you for making each of our shows your first listen each and every day right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports broadcasting network in the land. We are brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins that define the moment. Putting in the work defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. Eric, I'm going to have some questions for you later on in the show. A lot of Vols fans probably want answered. Offense, transfer portal schedule, a little bit of everything. We'll get to that later on. The defense, there's a lot of questions there. They bring in a high-profile coordinator who's going to be the stars. Also going to talk about some of the weapons. They obviously were better than what fans expected based on our conversation from this time last year. There are a lot of question marks. It obviously worked out. But the number one thing to talk about is Joey Aguilar, the perceived, at least on my end, slam dunk that he was going to get that taken care of last week didn't come to be. Initial thoughts from you? What do you think is going to happen? I didn't even read because I just assumed I was going to see it coming across my screen that, hey, this guy's back. What were your thoughts when he didn't immediately get eligibility for Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't expecting a ruling from the bench on Friday. I mean, after seeing Trinidad Chambliss's, the day before, I was like, okay, maybe it's a possibility. But that one started in the morning. They had witnesses and all that, but that one went all day long. Joey's hearing didn't start until 1:30 in the afternoon. No witnesses. It was really just like 2 hours they were in and out. But it's a different. They're hearing different things, right? I mean, Trinidad's was simply on a red shirt, a medical red shirt. I mean, I think he has the most slam dunk thing to be, the quarterback for Ole Miss of the three of them. The third one being Bediako, of course. Joey's much like Pavia, trying to argue that the JUCO rule should be wiped out and those years shouldn't count. Antitrust, taking money out of their pocket, all that and more. So they're different, but I was never expecting a ruling from the bench. And so when he came out there and said, I can't rule today, that was no shock. I think it's going to come sometime this week. The time of this recording, you got a holiday earlier in the week. I think it could come mid to late week and maybe early next week at the latest. But wasn't shocked there. I never thought this was going to be a slam dunk anyway. I understand, how Trinidad's played out and the judge getting emotional and all that. I thought it was pretty weird. I thought it was very weird, to be honest with you. But the NCAA, the attorneys that tried that case left early and came to Knoxville. I mean, it was the same group, and they kind of came in here guns blazing saying, hey, this court's clad in orange, and it pretty much painting the picture that it's an unfair home field advantage, really. And I think Chris Haggerty, who was the judge here in Knox County, pretty much said, not in my courtroom. We're going to do our due diligence. We're gonna hear all sides. And you had Aguilar's attorney get up there, Cam Norris, and he spoke for about an hour, and it was just him and the judge going back and forth. I mean, he was peppering him with questions and all that. And then you had Tyler Eskew, who came out for the NCAA side and was doing the same thing. He talked for about 40 minutes. So you're sitting there watching, and if you don't have a legal background, and I certainly do not, you're kind of sitting here like, oh gosh, it don't feel good. Like, it don't feel good. But then I talk to people and they're like, no, that's normal. No, that's normal. Because the judge can only rule on what's on the record in his courtroom. So you're asking a lot of questions that you already know the answer to. So I never thought it was going to be a slam dunk. I never thought that it was going to be the end result coming at the end of that hearing. But I certainly think it's more closer to 50-50 than a slam dunk for sure, kind of, as we await ruling.
All right, let's look at it from two scenarios. If Joey is granted the next opportunity to be Tennessee's quarterback again, can they take another step up? I mean, offensively, they were good last year. That scoring points was not the problem.
Yeah.
Defensively, giving up the key play, to my knowledge, was the bigger issue.
Yeah.
A, can they take it to the next level, especially since they lost their left tackle? And B, which player or players have to be the ones besides Aguilar to do that? Because I think they're going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think offensively certainly was not the issue this year. Tennessee was 8-4 in the regular season. The defense was so bad. Defense ranked like 93rd statistically in total defense. And Brian, if Tennessee's just average defensively, if Tennessee's like 20 points higher in total defense, you're probably winning another game or two, and heck, you're probably in the college football playoff. I mean, everybody wants to remember the kicker that missed a field goal to beat Georgia. That game, Aguilar threw for over 400 yards and 5 total touchdowns. But if Tennessee's defense would have made 3 third-down stops, 2 fourth-down stops, a 2-point conversion there at the end, just one of those stops, and you win that game. And so I think just from revamping, getting a new coordinator, tearing down the secondary, starting over there, you're going to be better defensively. But anyway, back to your point. Offensively, yeah, I mean, I think Aguilar could certainly get better. He kind of fell off a little bit towards the end. Now, he was dealing with a benign tumor in his bicep, so clearly I think that affected him. I think that, that ball security, a couple fumbles and all that, but overall, he led the SEC in passing in the regular season. Tennessee ran not as effectively, but still ran for over 2,200 yards. You bring back Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, Deshaun Bishop. You bring back 5 starters who have started games on the offensive line. Tennessee's offense should be just fine next year. If you have a freshman or a young guy that rolls in there, there's questions because there's unknowns. But if you have Joey Aguilar there, I just think you take another step and you score more points, you have more yards, and you try to show up in bigger games, play 4 quarters against Alabama, play 4 quarters against Vanderbilt, which Tennessee did not do this year.
Yeah, I think that they can be in every game with their offense, but I'm curious, like Matthews in particular intrigues me as a receiver because he's like, I saw him in high school and that's what it's supposed to look like when you're talking about elite athlete and all that.
Well, it's funny. Sorry to cut you off here. Let me ask you this because you have the scouting background, dealing with recruits and all that. Mike Matthews is always great as a receiver. Mike Matthews was a dude at safety.
I thought he was better on defense.
Exactly. So coming over as a true freshman in 2024, didn't play an awful lot, and fans are like, what's going on? 5-star. I hear you, but he was kind of, I don't want to say learning to play wide receiver, but he had a defensive background. And you saw him blossom this past year, and I think there's still a level there for Mike Matthews to reach a wide receiver.
You're 100% right. He was a do-it-all guy in high school. He was a national top 50 prospect by everybody. I think national top 25 by a couple. Mm-hmm. So it was just a matter of where the hell is he going to play? Yeah. I remember literally like where I was standing when we were talking about him at the Under Armour Atlanta event, which we always go to everybody, Chad Simmons and all these different guys go to. We're like, look at this kid. He doesn't look like a lot of the other guys. Yeah. So, I think there's another step he can take. And this is where the bread is won, meaning the money in your pocket. Route running. Mm-hmm. Does he take another step in route running? Because freakish, like you were born that way. Does he take that next step in comebacks, curls, and setting up double moves? Because if he does, I think he can lead the entire SEC in total yardage, maybe touchdowns, if they get Aguilar back. So that's up to him because I'm sure Tennessee is all for it. They'll vote for that, I'm sure. Yeah. But it's up to Matthew. Like he has to want that next step because he's not worrying about playing DB or anything else on offense. He's just, I'm a wide receiver now. Mm-hmm. In high school, a kid like that, you put him in every spot, kick return, all that stuff. Yeah. He's just a receiver. When we come back, Tennessee's offensive weapons are really good, but the defense, what does it mean for this team to take a step forward? Because they're bringing in a coordinator that is running a very complex scheme. There is history that shows year one is not great with that. How do they blend the two? Because they need to win, especially if Aguilar's back this season. That is going to be next right here on this crossover, Locked on Vols and Locked on the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda, moving the game forward. For those that show there's more to the score than just what's on the screen. For me, I think Joey Aguilar is the perfect guy to talk about. He came in last year. Not many people knew about him for Tennessee. He kind of moved around different spots. He's getting ready to play for UCLA, and he ends up in Knoxville. He ended up leading the league in passing yardage during the regular season. That's a guy that didn't have spring ball, didn't have all the time in the springtime to work with the receivers, the linemen, or anything, and he still led the league at passing. If that's not somebody that took advantage of his opportunity, I don't know what is, and congrats to him. And he's somebody that reminds us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the field, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put the same passion into every model, highlights that make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there is more to you. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is one of the key sponsors for our show, and there's a great opportunity right now going on because with FanDuel, we've got the NBA Finals, and if you want to see them in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with the NBA Sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered into the sweepstakes for your shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole shebang with FanDuel. If you're already looking at the board and like, well, I think this team or that team's going to make it to the finals, just use your profit boost, and there you go. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future to enter your chances. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making each of our shows part of your day. And if you want to take it to the next level, check out the Everydayer Club. In my opinion, the best part, $5 or $50 for a month. Your audio will have no ads. You can get Locked On Vols, Locked On the Portal, anywhere else. $5. That's all it takes. And if you want more information, Discord, just check out the description down below. Now, Eric, defense. This is where I don't know. I honestly have no idea how this is going to go. I'm going to let you give your guess. But every time there is a coordinator change, that means spring is install. It is slow. There's no quick way to do it. And depending on the coordinator, it can be really slow. Reports from Penn State were that it didn't go as well as they liked because there was too much thinking, blah, blah, blah. Ohio State went the same thing, et cetera, et cetera. What is the rumor mill like at Tennessee? How is this going to go for the Vols?
Well, a couple of things here. Numbers back up what you're saying. I mean, I looked him up when he got hired, and I went back the last 10, 12 years of his defenses, and I said, this is where they ranked. And then I went year 1, year 2, year 3. I mean, there's significant growth, right? And that's what you hope. The more you're comfortable, the more you rep, you're going to get better and better. So there's absolutely factual truth in what you're saying. I do think it's still overplayed a little bit because so many times in this offseason now, you can get out there and you can walk through things. You can walk through routes and defensive plays and coverages and all that. The install, I mean, let me put it this way. Joey Aguilar arrived on campus in mid-May last year. Before the start of the season, he went through install 3 times. Once on his own, once in summer workouts, once in camp. You add in a spring install period as well. I mean, there's multiple times you're going through install. So from a mental makeup, I think they're going to be okay. Something I think that is different now at Tennessee that he did not have at Penn State and he did not have at Ohio State when he went there to coordinate the defense, as being Jim Knowles. He brought some guys with him. A couple of analytics guys that always help him. But he brought Anthony Poindexter, who he was just with for 1 year at Penn State, but really liked him. A guy that's got an extensive defensive background. He's the co-DC. He's the safeties coach, but he's over the whole secondary. That's his guy. He brought in Andrew Jackson, Coach AJ Jackson, to coach the Leos, the edge. He was with him from Penn State. He brought in a new quarterbacks coach that was hired just a couple days ago in Derek Jones, who he coached with for 7 or 8 years in Durham with Duke. So he's bringing a lot of guys that know his system, that speak his language, and can kind of help accelerate that a little quicker than what happened in Happy Valley this year, or even in Columbus back in 2021 when he took over. Another thing, and we'll talk more specifics about the players in a moment, at every level, he has a coach and a player that knows the scheme. On the defensive line, Xavier Gilliam in the interior, Chaz Coleman, couple that with Coach Andrew Jackson, boom. The defensive line knows the scheme, 2 players a coach. At linebacker, Amari Campbell. Jim Knowles, the DC, he's a walk-around DC, but he's a linebacker coach, right? Yeah. Coach, player, married there. And the secondary, you have a Dejuan Lane, a safety from Penn State, coupled with Anthony Poindexter. So, is it everything? No, but I think those things will kind of help out in trying to accelerate the Jim Knowles system and hopefully seeing results quicker rather than later. But I do think that year over year you should get better, but I think they're trying to close that gap a little bit in year 1 at Tennessee because of him bringing in guys and also bringing in Penn State guys from the transfer portal.
Yeah, it's a really good marriage, and I hope that works out because they didn't just bring some guys like Coleman like that. That's a dude. Gilliam, somebody played early. Campbell. These aren't just average athletes that were kind of role players for the Nittany Lions. They had a chance to be future NFL players. They got multiple years of eligibility, but they've been through the scheme. So while it may not be at practice, they can be sitting somewhere with their buddies and say, well, this is why we do this. And You've got to help teach your teammates. That's just part of college football. Nobody uses the 20-hour rule or anything close to it. That's garbage. It's never been that way. But his system is big. His playbook is more offensive playbook size. It's not just chase the ball and kill the ball. They try to scheme things and set it up. My other question for you, the back end of his defense is a little bit different than some. Do you trust the safeties coming back for the Vols and the ones they brought in to be high level between the ears to kind of set everything up? Because if they do, that will certainly help.
It is safety driven, and that's something I learned when I spoke to some different people that covered Ohio State, that covered Penn State. This is a safety driven defense, and Tennessee is just so weird. Tennessee's defense did a few things for half the year at least at an elite level. That was getting after the passer, turnovers, scoring off turnovers. Those things kind of tailed off a little bit as the season went along. But the worst part about Tennessee's defense last year was the secondary, specifically the safety play. And lost a couple guys at graduation, a couple guys went in the transfer portal. You brought back one starter in Idris Farouk, who was a young guy, a sophomore last year. Certainly went through his lumps, but I think he's going to be a good player when that's all said and done. But you go and you get TJ Metcalf from Michigan, who was an all Big Ten guy. He started at Arkansas. He knows this league, played a ton. He's now here at Tennessee. You bring in Dejuan Lane from Penn State, who was the third safety, not on the field, the third safety, like on the depth chart, essentially, the first guy off the bench, but is a guy that they, and speaking with people that cover Penn State, they viewed him as another starter. Like, they viewed him as a guy, and so he knows the defense, and certainly he's got some athletic ability. You go and you bring in a couple of different guys. Burks from Appalachian State, who actually went to Maryville High School just right down the road. He's a veteran guy. And then you bring back Idris Farouk. So it's a different collection of players. We'll be interested to see how it plays out. But I'm a big fan of having Lane here, who knows the coaching staff, who knows the system. TJ Metcalf, who was an all Big Ten performer last year. And then you go get Quay Moss from Kansas State, who started at North Florida or wherever it was, West Florida, spent a year at Kansas State, a guy that he's older, but a lot of people think he has an NFL future. He's going to play that nickelback, that star position, which is more of a safety body in this defense. So, again, we won't know until it's all said and done, but obviously safety was the biggest issue. They went out and got a lot of bodies, a lot of experience, and at least in Lane's case, a guy that knows the system. So hopefully that will kind of, again, cut down the time gap in terms of trying to get this defense and allow for quicker results.
Yeah, that's fair. If they can do that, combined with Matthews and all those guys coming back offensively, assuming Aguilar's back, they can be right in the playoff hunt. When we come back, I have a few questions for Eric, including some scheduling things. The SEC moving to 9 games. How do the fans feel? How does he feel about it? What do you think about Tennessee's schedule? That is next here on this crossover of Locked On Vols and Locked On the Portal. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person just stumbles across your job posting, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, whether it's their experience, skill, certification, or even the location the individual may live. If you're hiring, you don't want to be spending time just going through resumes. You want to be working and making money. Let Indeed do the hard work for you and save you time and money. And here's a great way to look at it. This is about a minute I'm going to talk about Indeed. In that time, on average, 27 people within a minute are hired by Indeed around the world. Listeners of this show will also get $75 in sponsored job credit to help you with Indeed's hiring process. Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring. Do it the right way with Indeed. All right, Eric. Scheduling. The SEC doing 9 games. What are your initial thoughts? B, thoughts just about their schedule in general for the Vols. How do you think that will impact them next year, if at all?
Well, I've been a big proponent of going to 9 games in the SEC for a long time, simply because it's a pride thing for me. If you want to beat your chest and say it just means more and we're the best of the best, play 9 games. That's that. But having said that, I mean, Greg Sankey, what are you doing? why in the world are you going to 9 games and the playoff is still at 12? Going to 9 games was coming with a caveat of going to 16 or 14 or 16 teams in the college football playoff. That's not happened. I mean, Greg Sankey's had a rough go about here. The Big Ten's kind of played him the last couple of months, in my opinion. So 9 games, it's here. Let's see what happens. I'll be intrigued to know if the SEC will drop the non-conference Power 4 component, because each team has to play a Power 4 game in non-conference play. So far, it's not. Maybe after this year they will. I think they should. But then again, it also protects rivalries like South Carolina, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Kentucky, Louisville, Florida State. Yeah. So I get all that, but we'll see what happens. Tennessee's schedule, it's brutal. It is brutal. Georgia Tech certainly is not a gimme there in week 2. That's going to be down in Atlanta, not at Mercedes-Benz. It's going to be on the home field of Bobby Dodd Field there at Georgia Tech, which is going to be exciting. Texas, first SEC game at Neyland on September the 26th. Arch, obviously, is getting better and better. Texas is a pretty good team. First-year coach and guy that Tennessee very much knows, and Alex Golesh coming to town. I think that's a game Tennessee's got to win against a rebuilding Auburn club. You're at Arkansas, which Tennessee doesn't play at Arkansas much, and Arkansas is not one that really scares you, but Tennessee's not won at Arkansas in a long time. So, that's one to kind of circle on the calendar.
You can't lose that game. You cannot.
You can't lose that game. You couldn't afford to lose that game in 2020. I mean, you did. You still made the playoffs, but you just gave that game away in 2024. It made no sense. Third Saturday in October with Alabama. That's always a challenge. At South Carolina, I'm intrigued to know how much better South Carolina is this year. If not, Beamer's gone. He's got to be. You bring in a new OC. You've got so much talent at the quarterback position. Can he put that together? And the last time Tennessee played at South Carolina, it was horrible in 2022. Hendon Hooker tore his ACL. Tennessee got drilled and got knocked out of the playoffs. Kentucky should be a win. At A&M, first time Tennessee's played at A&M since 2016. At LSU at home. Lane Kiffin comes to town. Sure, it's a new coach for that team, but they're going to be pretty good. I'm just going to go out on a limb here. And then at Vanderbilt, which is certainly not a gimme. So it's weird to say that, certainly not a gimme. And we'll see how Vanderbilt is post Diego Pavia, but I think they've done some work here.
Different.
Yeah. But nonetheless, tough schedule. It's going to be, regardless if Aguilar's the quarterback or not, it is going to be a tough schedule. As you mentioned, there are a couple of games on that schedule you've got to win. You've got to beat Auburn. You've got to beat Arkansas. You have to beat Kentucky, which Tennessee will. You need to beat South Carolina on the road. And then just kind of see what happens in those games against Texas, LSU at home, A&M on the road. You need to win a couple of those games, but this is the most challenging Tennessee slate in a while, probably going back to 2018, 2019. Remember, Tennessee's always played Alabama from the West, and it felt like Tennessee always got that team on the rise, whether it be LSU or an Auburn or whoever. Like, it just felt like that's how it always landed for Tennessee that year. It's going to be challenging, but if you have Aguilar back, again, I think that you feel much better about your chances navigating that schedule.
My only question is, if Aguilar's back, offense does well, how are they going to look at the coaching staff if they play competitively, regardless who they go through? If they finish 8-4 with like 4 close losses against that schedule, how are Vols fans going to look at it? Because that schedule is not friendly. That's probably a top 10 schedule, I would imagine. Like, they want to make the playoff and do something. I just don't see that schedule being conducive for it.
It's always great here in the offseason to say, well, I mean, yeah, if you go 9-3 with close losses or 8-4 with close losses, especially if you say with a freshman quarterback or something, it's like, that's a pass for Vol fans. And I mean, people might talk about that in the offseason, but as well as anybody, not just here in Tennessee, but just college football fans in general, fan short for fanatic. You take a loss on the chin, a close loss, and it's like, oh my God, you should have went for it on 4th down when you were at the opposing 42, or what are you doing? I mean, people lose their minds. If you lose 4 games again, I'm not saying, I mean, Tennessee could because of that schedule. They're not going to be happy fans here, because Josh Heupel's had so much success at Tennessee after walking through the wilderness for 15 years, and you made a college football playoff. You have beaten Alabama a couple times, beaten Florida a couple times. Georgia's that last team that he's got to tackle. Orange Bowl victory, Citrus Bowl victory. I mean, things that Tennessee hasn't done in a long time, or CFP never been to before. So you want to keep climbing. And Josh Heupel, who is not on the hot seat, but he needed to make changes, and he goes and he makes a change at defensive coordinator. He makes a change at strength and conditioning coordinator or coach, where he goes and hires Derek Owings away from Indiana and pays him $1.2 million. So fans have wanted change. He's made changes this offseason. Will that give him a bye year if you're starting a freshman quarterback with the schedule? It's great to say maybe in the offseason, but comes down to it, I don't think so when you get in the season, simply because you're in win now mode every year, and you got to have results.
That makes college football what it is. And it's why I enjoy it, but it doesn't mean there aren't some frustrating questions like, what are you guys thinking here? Especially if it is not Joey Aguilar. I'm not going to dive into that rabbit hole with freshman court. Like, I think the world of who they're bringing in. I'm not even going to say his name, but like freshman quarterbacks in the SEC usually do not do well.
Yeah.
And I highlight out this against that schedule. Yeah, I'm not betting at this.
It's why and we can have another show about this if Aguilar's injunction case comes back, not the way you want it. But it's why you love that you are bringing back a veteran offensive line that has got to play better. Played really well all year long, except in 4 games against Alabama, Vanderbilt, Illinois, and there was another game in there where they didn't play very well. Anyway, you bring back so much a wide receiver. You bring back a 1,000-yard rusher in the backfield. So you have things in place to help you, but it's still brutally tough to navigate that schedule. So, yeah, we can have another show on that if the time comes, but it's going to be tough. The schedule's tough for whoever is playing quarterback in Tennessee.
Absolutely. Eric, I appreciate you stopping in and doing a crossover with me. Tell everybody where they can find your work.
Yeah, we got more content than ever on our Locked On Vols channels. Wherever you get your podcast, audio, of course, it's on YouTube. We set something out in the morning, so when you're on your way to work, and of course in the late afternoon, early evening, we got something out there. Of course, you can find us on @Cainer. That's my handle, and of course @Locked On Vols. And if you're a part of the Locked On Everydayer Club Discord channel, we got a Locked On Vols channel in there. So if you want to come by and hang out or come by and talk crap, hey, we'll be in there and we'll be ready to roll. So I appreciate you guys as always.
Absolutely. Same places you can find Eric with Locked On Vols. Same thing with Locked On the Portal, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, everywhere else. This has been a crossover, Locked On Vols and Locked On the Portal.